And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with me is Rhonda Attar. Rebbetzin Rhonda, but she doesn't like to be called Rebbetzin. Rhonda, introduce yourself and tell everyone why you are so awesome, and then we can get into our topic of time and God.
Wow. First of all, it hit me when you said we're alive. I was like, yeah, we're alive. That in itself is an amazing thing to think, we're alive. We're really alive. Baruch Hashem, it's incredible. I can't do with this stuff of like why you're so awesome. That's not going to work for me. Also, when I was filling out your form, it was like, what are you an expert in? I wanted to say absolutely nothing. So I don't know what to tell you. Do you want a bit of my background? I'm happy to talk about a bit of my background. I know my background's unusual. I'm actually one of the founders of the Israeli commercial television channels, and I had quite a career in television with expertise in producing and directing and branding, all negotiations with Hollywood studios. I went on to be general manager, vice chairman of the board. I launched 10 cable satellite channels in Israel, another 4 abroad to like 120 countries, and also operating our playout center, international playout center, this broadcast center. Of course, we also had an award-winning commercial company as well. And I did really a very large career in that. It's actually one that I had studied in the States and came here and did. And yet at the same time, I was always with one foot in the Kedusha side, my husband being a rabbi. And here in Kochav Ya'akov, it was very important for us. We built, we wanted to have the Sea of Torah. I always said, if had I stayed in the United States, I think I would have had, the luxury in life would have probably been to have something in Hollywood, a swimming pool or something like that. I said, but now here I have, the Sea of Torah, Baruch Hashem, in my life that we were able to have here. So we built a Beit Knesset and a Beit Midrash, and it has a rabbinical seminary, a Kol HaChatzot. We have mikvaot. We also get to have the zchut of having Bat-Chen's husband and sometimes her kids as part of our minyanim. In fact, her husband every once in a while gives shiurim, which is always a treat, sometimes at the shiurim as well, at the Beit Knesset. And I'm also dabbled in other things, writing, because that was also part of my previous career. Koren published a trilogy I wrote for young adults called the Elisha Davidson trilogy, which is kind of like the best way to say, although I don't like calling it, is like Jewish Harry Potter. But what's amazing about it is, I think for our kids, is that it shows them everything's greener on our side, like all of this incredible, amazing, the magical, the real thing, we've got it. And it basically kind of like opens up the treasure chest of all of our beautiful midrashim and things to get kids' imaginations excited. Instead of reading, like I say, especially at Hanukkah time, it always bothers me that they're going with Percy Jackson, which is like Greek mythology. Come on. We have to do better by our kids, right? So I wrote that. And I still do a lot of consulting in the various fields. And starting 15 years ago, I started a women's Beit Midrash in our complex. And towards Corona, I started taking it online to Zoom, and actually continued with that because it affords more people that aren't necessarily just here in the yeshuv to hear the shiurim. And I also have a very big zchut that happened to be Bat-Chen Grossman's neighbor.
Oh, yes. It's such a big deal that you're my neighbor.
We also very much share, we have the aesthetic mindset. As you probably, they all know, right, that you're an amazing a graphic artist, so they call them media engineers today. And so that's also one of the loves in my life. So I feel like Bat-Chen and I sometimes can really relate on that aesthetic plane as well. Something that I spent a lot of time doing, and I still do actually with the branding. Yeah. So let's try to give a bit of a background. And actually the two have always been synonymous in my life, and I've always straddled both these roles, put them together. I think that actually in the Elisha Davidson books, you can understand actually how that comes together.
Yes. So, I think I want to tell the listeners why I picked to have you on my podcast, especially to talk about time and God, but also just in general, because I think you're an amazing example of what it looks like to be a successful woman, and also very, very connected, very aligned, extremely in flow without having it conflict in any way your values, and also the fact that you are going after your dreams and doing the thing. So I think for people to see that is really important. And yeah, that is extremely important.
Bat-Chen, that's an interesting thing that you brought up now, because one of the things I really say, my career is proof that careers are what Hashem gives you, okay? Because anyone who knows the Israeli television industry has to know extremely left. They're gotten a lot better over the years. You have Channel 14 stuff. But in those days, we're talking about extremely left, no tolerance for right wing, extremely anti-religious, okay, on top of it. Also, I'm sorry to say, but at those times too, when I was doing this misogynistic, or like at least not for women, it was a very man's world. They were chauvinistic, and on top of everything else. And, not a lot of tolerance for what I'd say an Ola Chadasha, somebody coming from the United States. But I came, with all of these degrees and all this information and stuff like that. And I just saw like how Hashem kept putting me in these places, like being the first woman, manager, and then nobody understood what was going on. And yet these people, which are from a very different walk of life than me personally, I have to say that they are so close to me. We are like bonded in such a strong way. And maybe just for that, I needed to be out there so that we could have that. But it's very interesting. And it's so obvious to me. I always said before I made Aliyah, because actually I had gotten a job at Aaron Spelling Production, which company nobody knows anymore, but the older people will. And I was supposed to do productions out there. And then the night that I was supposed to go out there and take this job, I said to myself, okay, what will be the future? Well, what will happen to me? Where will I go from here? What's waiting for me if I go into this very secular world and very American and this television? How do I know that I'll have a neshama left at the end of the day? I was single at the time. How am I going to marry somebody even Jewish? Forget about religious. Where's my kids are going to be? Like that too. So what we get? What do you get? An Oscar? You get a Hollywood? A mansion? A swimming pool? What's going to be? And I was just like, forget that. But I made a deal with myself. I made a very important deal with myself. And I said, if you come into Israel, okay, and you do that and you give that up, okay, my number one luxury in life has to be Israel. Living in Israel has to be my number one luxury in life. And I mean to be a Jewish person living with Israeli holidays, with the kosher food, with other Jews, in Eretz Yisrael, the dream of thousands of years to be able to have such a huge zchut, that is going to be my luxury in life. And Baruch Hashem, a million times, I always say that I was able to get luxury. Now, at the beginning, when I was living here, as a single person, I have to say I was probably starving. But afterwards, no, that's what's incredible about it. I saw how Hashem just kept doing, my career, giving me bigger positions, et cetera, and and all the luxuries too. In the end of the day, in the end, it's like Hashem said. You said that, I felt like it was always like you said, this is going to be your luxury in life. Don't worry, you're not going to miss out on the other luxuries. So Baruch Hashem in it. But I do feel like what's combinations. It's really that you see Yad Hashem. It's like my career makes absolutely no sense to anybody who looks at it.
Let's just, Rhonda, I want to pause you for just a second. Some people don't speak Hebrew, so I want you to just translate to English.
So I speak Hebrew or Inglu. Those are my two languages.
Yes. So Yad Hashem is the hand of God. So keep going now.
What other ones did I say? I said I really.
You said a lot, but this one is the main one. I think if you didn't get that, then you're missing something. You're trying to figure it out, and you can't put it together. Okay. So you're really just saying, the combination is being able to see the hand of God in everything you do, therefore making it no conflict.
In fact, whenever we see something that's totally illogical, that's supposed to be a big highway sign. Like Hashem, what do you mean it's totally And I would say the times we're living in now, we see everything against Israel, and the anti-Semitic says when you're saying wow, and then saying we're genocide when they're genocide. Whenever you see things completely illogical, don't sit there and say, how can it be Hashem? This is because it's Hashem. If it was logical, then you would say, okay, this is logical. So I said that too. It's very apparent in my career that it was, Hashem's hand. Yeah. Because totally illogical.
But it's illogical, but then it also is inspirational because you know, a lot of us are walking around looking for someone to look up to that has done it and is able to show it is possible, and it's very hard to find. So as illogical as it is, we also want to believe that it's doable and practical.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the reason why maybe I also don't like the name, in the television world, they used to call me Rebbetzin. They'd come into my office and say, Rebbetzin, what should we put in this primetime slot? Just couldn't take it.
Well, they were using it as a derogatory term. So
no, whatever. It wasn't really ultimately derogatory. Like I said,
I know. They're like in a mockery type of thing,
yeah,
you know?
So, right.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. You know, I didn't want to be Rebbetzin. You know, every Rebbetzin I know is very old, and I didn't think I was old, so I didn't think it fit. And also, every Rebbetzin I knew always said, "Oh, don't call me Rebbetzin, just call me whatever." And I thought, who am I to go and say I am Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman when I'm so young and so not on their level, you know? And so like, it was a real process for me to own up to being Rebbetzin.
Interesting. But no, but you wear it well.
I wear it well. Thank you.
You do. It's appropriate for you.
Yeah, thank God. Okay, so our podcast is all about the 4 pillars. Everybody here wants to make their marriage and their business or success work together. And in order to do that, we need 4 things, not just marriage and business. We need God at the core, marriage and business, and then you as the container. And so because we have 4 pillars, we're focusing on the same topic from 4 different angles. And today's topic is time and the pillar of God. So how does God use time? How do we use time for God? Why did God create time? All of that good stuff. Let's get into that.
Okay, so Bat-Chen, we had said that this is actually a good discussion from Mesilat Yesharim, which we studied together, right? And we studied the Bilbavi commentary, Mesilat Yesharim, which is Rav Itamar Schwartz, and because there's a lot of discussion about this time, and I think that we have to understand fundamentally, or from the very basic, it's not to try to figure out like about time and Hashem. Hashem is time, right? That's like Hashem's name, right? If we look at that, the Yud K Vav K name, which I'm not going to say, but your viewers, or they understand that? Okay, so it means Haya Hoveh V'Yihiyeh. Hashem was, is, and will be. What does that mean? Hashem, like Hashem's the past, the present, and the future. Okay, that's like Hashem is like time, and this was also revealed to Moses when he was at the burning bush. So we have to understand that this is like a very time is like fundamentally Hashem to a certain degree, because if we had no time, then we wouldn't be alive and stuff like that. So we're all existing within this time, which is Hashem. But the crazy thing about that is that we don't recognize it, we don't see it, and we don't live it. And it's, that's one of the very strange things about it, is that, Hashem basically is this time. And so that means if we want to connect, the way we're going to ultimately be able to connect to Hashem is using, right, this doorway or this vehicle of time. And so in like what way? And that is that, the pauses in time. It's like, it's only when you make a significant effort to be able to say, I am going to connect to Hashem, or have space or time in your life, okay, to connect to Hashem. Otherwise, we're running around on a treadmill of time, rushing from one thing to another, okay, all doing physical activities. And we have a lot of very important things to do. Even davening all the time, even doing a whole bunch of mitzvot, all this stuff, we're like on a treadmill, running. And we don't really have any of the real time as a neshama, as a soul, to really connect to Hashem. And so that's one of the really big problems. And one of the things that the Ramchal discusses, which he's the author of Mesilat Yesharim, is that you cannot go anywhere in your spiritual life without first like getting in touch with your neshama, okay? And that is like me making time, like setting some time, and in the present, like now. And because one of the other important things we say about Hashem is that, Hashem is the present, and it's the present now. Meaning, how do we make time? This thing with Hashem is like we need to stop what we're doing now. We're not all the time. You have to remember too, even with all these physical activities, one of the things that happens to a lot of us is that we're always in the past, either reliving conversations over and over again what we did. And that's a bad thing to do too, because not only once, it's like, after it's happened already, there's no point just like, regurgitating it over and over again. It's not going to help you for anything. The future is just your imagination, with all due respect. I mean, what is that? It's really just your imagination. The only thing we really do have also is the present. So are we going to just be in a denial with that the whole time? So you imagine if we're either thinking about the past or we're talking about the future, or we're involved in other things. So we have no present and therefore no connection with Hashem, like we said, in this time zone of our neshama. Now that might just seem like, actually very, I don't know, simple, or like, but I can tell you that most people actually will go through their whole lives without making that place, that time, that break to actually connect to Hashem in the present, and being very present and saying, okay, I'm a neshama, I'm a soul, and I want to connect with Hashem. As crazy it is, because we think it's in our davening and all, it's not necessarily, it's not.
Yeah. Wow. When you said that, we live in the past and in the present, and you made this sort of space that is the present, in the past and future, and you made that space that's the present. Suddenly I saw that as almost like a hallway that can either expand or contract, right? Like we're either walking on this really, really thin line between past and future, or we're taking the time to really expand that and be in it. And so we really have a very powerful way of connecting or using time or expanding time. You know how people say like time is limited? And when you said God is time, I was like, wait, so time cannot be limited. It is abundant.
And also Hashem is even above that time, right? But Hashem reveals himself as is, was, will be.
Right. So I'm thinking, like, my mind is blown in all sorts of directions. I'm just going, woo, whoa, because, people are like telling you time is limited. We have scarcity of time. I never have enough time. I'm running after the next thing. I'm doing, running. And, almost grasping at the little time I have. And instead you're saying the secret is not to do more, to do less, to pause and expand the time you are in right now. That's so counterintuitive and so awesome.
By the way, it's actually exactly what you said, and something even I think deeper that the Ramchal brings up, because what he says, if you remember, we studied this. It was like when we think about what is our Yetzer Hara. Okay, so the Ramchal and the Rav Schwartz explain what is our Yetzer Hara. Basically, our Yetzer Hara is that feeling that we don't have time for anything. Come on, I can't say. We think, oh, the Yetzer Hara is like, this little devil sits on his shoulder, it's a Christian kind of outlook, or like, somebody tell you, do that, don't do that. And he's saying, actually, the real Yetzer Hara that we all have is I don't have time for anything. Meaning, so I don't have time to create these pauses to be in touch with my neshama and live the present. And the reason where this starts from, it's very interesting. It's old as our history itself, as our nation, because they say Paro, okay, Pharaoh. When he had the Jewish people, what was the reason why he kept us as slave laborers? It was so that we wouldn't have time. We wouldn't have time to reflect. He knew there would be a redeemer. And it says like this. This was the wicked Paro, okay? He said, to intensify the men's labor, I'm reading from Exodus 5:9. His purpose to this, is Ramchal's, was not only to prevent them from having any leisure time to plot against him, but keeping them constantly busy with work, so they would have no time to reflect. They'd have no time to call out to Hashem, okay? And this is like a really crazy thing. And I said, this is why he did it. One of the things, so the root we say of our gulut, our exile is not having time. Like we're exiled from our spiritual world because we don't have time. That's a crazy kind of idea too, because we think we have all this time, but no, we don't have time. Our lives are so hectic and so stressful that we have no time for cheshbon nefesh, no time to think about who I am, what I'm doing, what my neshama wants. I don't have time.
And this is the biggest problem. Let me tell you, the biggest thing I hear from women who are in business and also running a home and also trying to do it all is, I just don't have time. And instead of pausing and really, really connecting, we're trying to do more. And I'm saying we, because it's very normal. We're all in this boat.
Yeah. No, what I didn't, that I raised family with, all of this. Okay.
Right.
And also being, the primary, person with it working. It was, I know all about that.
We're on a treadmill. We're running. We're grasping at the little tiny bits of nothing. How do we align and create a flow within life right now? Not that we have to wait for the kids to grow up, or that we have to wait for our husband to, retire, or that we have to wait for some magical thing to happen for us to create time. But how do we do that right now in all of the chaos?
So one of the first things is really recognizing this very deep fundamental secret, like understanding that, whenever we feel that we don't have time, okay, and that's doing it, that's actually the Yetzer Hara. It's not the complication of our lives, right? Because the first thing is like you said, but we're mothers and we're busy and we have this and you have this many children. And so it's all of these things. Of course, I'm busy and I don't have time for anything. That is what we're saying, is we first have to recognize it's a Yetzer Hara, because what Paro did was he tried to get people so they didn't have time to breathe. Okay, does that sound familiar, that you didn't have time to breathe? It's a really beautiful thing too, because it says when Moshe Rabbeinu, went to the people, he tried to speak to them and tell them, and they couldn't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu because they had kotzer ruach. They were short of breath. They couldn't breathe. Imagine Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest prophet ever lived, was telling them, guess what? We are going to the end. The Geula is here. Okay, you're going to be saved. And they said, we don't have time to listen to you because we're so busy. I got to take care of my kids and I got my job and I'm going to do, and I wake up in the morning. So I can't hear you. But that's the pasuk. It says the people couldn't do it. They couldn't hear him because they just, they had a shortness of breath. They were so busy. And the thing that we have to understand is that what happened then, does that sound familiar? Because that's now.
Yeah.
That's now. We have to understand, like when we were becoming a nation like that, things were so bad that we didn't have time to breathe. We didn't have time to think. We didn't have time to breathe. And I always say too, we have to understand when we're looking at our lives today, and there's nothing more like crazy like that. And you say it's also modern times. I don't care. You could say all the things that you have to do, but look, the whole culture is to make you not have time to breathe. Okay, everything has to be instant and quickly. If you don't click on something right away, it's like next to the next thing. Okay, we talk about like whatever it is, like you're shopping, Amazon Prime, you want to get next day. I mean, everything is instant, on demand. And not only that, we always also are like supposed to have no downtime. There's no space. We always have to be available and everybody be in touch with us. And there people are just like sucking in all this time too. And we have all these devices and everything that's going around. So, and that like, it's like, it looks like it's also part of sucking up all of our time, but that's because we're not seeing it for what it really is. Okay. All of these things. And when we think, this feeling that we don't have time is this Yetzer Hara. By the way, also when people are like waiting in line, something the first thing they do now is like, wow, you can go to your phone and you can take care of all the things. Something, I don't want to waste any time, thinking that you're not going to get all this stuff accomplished. But really, if you were able to take a pause, use that as a pause in time, it would be something very different. Okay. So, one of the problems is like, we always have something at our fingertips that's going to like get us to like use our time more efficiently, but it's really not. It's just sucking up all of this time. And if you said too, like if you have a corridor, right, what's going on. So I think one of the most important things is kind of like a shift that we have to understand internally. Like when we feel short of time, we don't have time. That is Yetzer Hara, actually. It's going to make us go through our whole lives, not taking the tikkunim that we have to do, not saying the things we have to do, not even doing the potential actions that we're doing because we're too caught up in the treadmill.
Right. And basically, it's an illusion.
Yes.
It's an illusion.
Right. Illusion. Right. But we also noisy. The world is very, very, very noisy. And, all this noise that's going around now, especially with all the devices and stuff. And plus our noises seem so noisy because, women out in the work field. So it's like, what, on top of having to have, all of whatever the responsibilities of being a mother and a wife and et cetera, and I'm working now. And, So like, it's like, you see, like, the life is very noisy. Plus you have all these devices to, drive you up the wall. But so what we say is that and don't forget the dis-ease, right? We always remember that diseases is like this disease thing. And we have to think. So one of the things Rav Schwartz says too is that that it's so bad, that stress and that lack of ease to bring you the disease. It's really bad. Of course, people can grind themselves to get sick and overworked and burnt out and, and depressed and all this stuff because thinking they have to do all that stuff. But you see, again, we have to recognize for what it is. It's the Yetzer Hara. When somebody feels overwhelmed and they don't have time for anything, that's when they have to like catch it and say, hey, wait, what's going on? Because Rav Schwartz, and he says too, in these noisy worlds, we need to start making some space. We need to create some quiet. We have to start blocking out some of this noise. And we're not talking about a tremendous amount of time to block out the noise. Okay, but just blocking out the noise. One of the things that he talks about a lot is we talked about a pause, creating pauses in our lives. Little pauses. I'm not talking about long pauses. I'm talking about like 1 minute pauses, even pauses between activities to just like realign with myself. Okay. And if you remember, we were doing exercises like, what's this pause? Is to take a 1 minute and not think about anything. Okay. Oh, my to-do list, and I have to do this, and I got to go tomorrow to the supermarket. It's like, no, my shopping list. No, it's not the minute to be reading Tehillim for somebody's refuah shlema. It's not a minute to like, I don't know, check your phone, things that a minute of doing nothing is doing absolutely nothing. Okay. So it's not even thinking of anything, just thinking, hey, I'm actually a neshama. I'm actually a God-given soul on this planet. Hold on. Just don't want to think of anything, but just remember in the present, in the very present, this pause of me, who I am, to block out some of this noise, because they say if in our neshama we can't find this time, place, we can be asleep at the wheel our whole lives and never get anywhere. They said even taking sometimes a break between activities, we go from one to another. We go from, I barely got that one, I got to check that one off. Listen, that is the worst thing that we can do. Little breaks, even like the 30 seconds to take like, okay, my mind, I was davening now, but now before you even read the Tehillim, I said I was new today, I'm taking a break and remembering I'm a neshama, just to relax for a minute and do it. And I always tell everybody that one of the most amazing things that Bat-Chen taught us when we were in this Mesilat Yesharim class, do you have the picture of the pause? I wish I had it so I could show you. Because we talked about all the time is that Hashem is in the pause. When we pause our life, that's where Hashem is. And I said this time. And the amazing thing is, right, that if you look at what is the icon or the sign of a pause sign, it's two like lines right next to each other. Right? You hit the pause. And when you hit the pause, what's beautiful about it, as Bat-Chen, again, she has this aesthetic, outlook. She said, wow, that's Yud Yud, which is also like a name of Hashem, right? So it's like, it was just incredible because it was almost like so obvious, like Hashem, Yud Yud, Hashem's in the pause. Really, Hashem is in the pause. That's where we find Hashem. It's not when we're running around and doing the million ones things and trying to, even doing chesed, acts of chesed. We could be doing tons of, I made a meal for this person and then I went to visit this person in the hospital, but you didn't take the pause. Hashem it's not that these weren't wonderful and beautiful acts, don't get me wrong, okay? But just even that pause, even before, let's say you went to visit somebody, just remembering, wow, hey, I'm in a neshama, I'm going now into this hospital, whatever, and just getting in touch with yourself for the present so you can actually start learning to appreciate your present and not what I did before and what I'm doing before, next, and just getting stuck in again. Oh, why did I say that? Why did she say that to me? And then like, oh, tomorrow I really want to be able to win this award. Forget it. The pause.
It was so beautiful to figure out that God is in the pause. Yeah. I remember that moment because, the class is with a slideshow. And you kept showing the pause over and over again. So beautiful. Your slideshows are just absolutely amazing. Magnificent. If you get a chance to come to the class, please do. It's so great. And I'm looking at the pause and you're talking about God being in the pause. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. It's God's name. Really is. The pause is God's name. And in my life, since we learned that, and that was probably 2 years ago, I've been pausing between things or even just mid-sentence, if I'm in the middle of praying and I feel like I'm on a, just a automatic, I'll pause myself and say, 1 second, what did I just say? What am I praying for? Who am I? What's going on? It allows me to connect, and I love it. And one of the things that I have is the guide to unravel overwhelm. And
okay.
yes, if you want to get this guide, is at connectedforreal.com/guide. And it is so exactly what we're talking about right now. I mean, it gives you the step-by-steps, and it's really a fantastic guide, but it is so based on this. The fact that you get to, I'm not saying you must, I'm not saying you have to, because it's a choice. You get to pause and be human and be a soul, like you said. I feel like even if you just go to the basics of be human, like stop running after something that isn't here and be in the present. What's interesting? Your body can only be in the present. Your body can't be in the past and it can't be in the future. It's your mind that's playing that game of past, future, but your body is only present. So sometimes just getting into your body, like taking a deep breath or feeling your toes or whatever it is, like getting into your body will force you to be present.
It's very true. And the crazy thing too, because we have so much self-help out there in the world, we're trying to get us to this stuff. But like one of the things we just understand is like, it's really all with us. We've got all of this, and really, and the king is just like discovering it. Like we said too, it's such a shame that people can go their whole lives without getting to, the core of like, to be able to, like you said, say like, hey, I'm a neshama, and, I need to, that's who I am. But I'm not going to like live that part of me. Like again, my whole life is just gone on the treadmill. I didn't get it. I'm like only like at Mea Srim, you figure it out.
Yeah. And a lot of us are walking around, are running around. We're not even walking, we're running. We have a lot to accomplish around here, so we got to get moving.
I know, and
it's overwhelming.
And these breaks are short ones. What you talked about was actually Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka. He said that when you're davening, he said you should even pause every 3 words, because what happens even in our davening, right? We say Baruch Hashem, we're just like, and we're thinking about something else, or we're not here, we're not this. It's like we just have to kind of like stop. Sometimes even just having one pause, a very good pause, like before you start your day, we said too, like, where you're just like all in, where you have your moment, is enough to give you the rest of the day. And the crazy thing is that, like we have, think about it this way. We have so much time, like we spend our lifetimes for these physical things are running around, but for our neshama, which is really the whole reason we're alive, you said we're alive, is our neshama. We don't have any time, no time to develop, to even recognize this neshama. How's that possible? That Hashem really created this world. So we said we needed pauses. And by the way, one of the things that's very obvious that Hashem, what is Shabbat? That's the big pause, okay? Hashem made this big pause. It was like this idea, so it's just to like stop running around. But we still run around all Shabbat, okay? It was supposed to be that we have the big ultimate pause. We start thinking, I'm a neshama, Hashem is the creator of the universe, to feel the yira, the love, the awe, to really feel Hashem in our lives. But we can't do that when, one of the things that Rabbi Schwartz says also too is like, we have a problem, like, when your hard drive is full to capacity, right? Sometimes our hard drives are just like, you need to sometimes make room for spiritual stuff too. We think that, we've studied all our lives. We've learned so much, Parsha Shavua and Shmirat HaLashon and, Tarat Mishpacha, everything you were supposed to do. And, you did, right? But what happened is the hard disk is now full and you feel like you can't get anything else in that hard disk. So you got to like sometimes empty out a little bit of space from your hard disk, okay? Really, some of this stuff, some of this extraneous information, whatever it is, or it's filling up your life in this hard disk. And we're not talking about a lot, but at least make a little bit of space, right? Because two things cannot exist at the same time. Hashem created, time and space, and this is one of the things, we said, like, two thoughts can't even exist at the same time. And that's why, when you're davening, but you're really thinking about, like, your shopping list or whatever, that's where you are. You're with the shopping list. So we really people need space. And what we don't need, we know that we need space. Even if people in love with each other need space, we need space from our kids. God forbid if kids didn't even sleep, right? It's like, we need space. Hashem created it that way. But what we're not realizing, it's so important. Like I said, otherwise you get the disease and the stress. We need the space. The neshama, which is the real, this is what Hashem did. He created us. But that neshama, where's that space in your life to just pay a little attention? Give that neshama some time. And like, not a lot, but just like to validate it, to be in the present with it.
Yeah. I remember, so my assistant is Aviva, and her husband, Ovadia, once ran this exercise, 1 minute for God. And he had all of us on a WhatsApp group, like, say if we did it. You know, we had to like give a thumbs up if we did it.
You study with my husband the same topic. You know that.
Yeah, I know. So he's awesome. They're all, everybody. I'm so grateful. I'm surrounded by all the most awesome people. And I remember he made a 1 minute video to get everybody on board. And he said, if you don't have 1 minute for God, who created that minute,
right,
then what are you doing? You know, it's like we say, I don't have time, but God is the one who gave you time.
Right.
And what you're going to say, I don't have time, but give me more. Like, it doesn't work. Something
I don't have enough time. I have enough time, right? I don't have enough time to do all the things I need to do.
Right. And it's very.
I don't have enough time to speak to Hashem. I don't have time to daven. I don't have time for any of that.
It's very shocking. It's very shocking. Yeah. You know, it's shocking to like, even just to be listening to this podcast and be pausing and thinking, wow, you know, I'm walking around complaining that I don't have enough time and that I'm doing so much and that there's so much going on and I have kids and my house and my food and my this and my that. And it's so easy to get caught up with all the things. And like you said, it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion.
And when you, by the way, when you practice this thing of pause, what's amazing is that you can also, what we do the pause and get yourself as a neshama as you're doing these other tasks. Okay. And in more of an advanced case, when you're working on it and stuff like that, we have this like kind of, I call it the out of box spiritual thinking, but you can like, so you're in your pause. And so you can be so present then with the other activities that you're doing, because you also understand the deeper value of what you're doing, which was maybe being, educating your own children, right? Or like, giving them, attention, make them feel warm and happy that you just didn't realize. You think you're playing a game with them, but like you start getting into touch with a whole different level of being present. And so,
I used to feel this as a graphic designer. I could work on something for like, I don't know, 10 hours. Just not find the right design. And then if I would pause and get in touch with God and say, God, you are the source of all creativity because you are the creator. Please help me. And I could finish something within 5 minutes.
Right.
Suddenly things would just flow. And now in my business, we just had to submit something for a bundle. It's like an amazing bundle that's happening. And I thought there was all these things to do. And I felt a little overwhelmed. So instead of going into it overwhelmed, I just paused. And I asked God to help me with it. I was like, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm ready to do whatever I need to do. I'm not here to, drag the time. I'm here to show up for you. And as soon as I said that, I'm here showing up for you. So now you be here with me. There was alignment and things just flowed. It was very cool. So
that, I would say that's like even a more advanced way of using, but that's really, really where we need to get to also, because, as Jews in the world, what we're trying to do is we're raising up that physical to the spiritual. The problem is we get stuck in the physical, make it devoid of spiritual, but really what our job is to bring them together. And when you do that, that's exactly, you took the pause, took the time, you're bringing Hashem into it. And that's really what we're supposed to be doing. But sometimes we get like so overwhelmed with, the amount of the work or the physical or like, like Paro did to the people that, we don't realize that. That's why I say it's a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is really doing this to us, so that we don't have the time something, because it doesn't want us to get us to this, to be holier human beings, to get us to this more advanced spiritual state. That's what the Yetzer Hara doesn't want us to do.
Yeah, it's trying to keep us in that lower levels of consciousness where we're just running after the next thing.
Like everything is like, I'm the one. My ego, I did it. I created it. And,
Right.
I can tell you when you're a general manager, especially in the television field, it is crazy business. It's just crazy. And if I had to totally adapt like a thing like, with, Hashem, this is it. If this is what you want it to be, then this is what it's going to be. And like, I'm not going to get nothing that anything that's supposed to be mine is going to be mine. Anything that's not supposed to be ours is not going to be ours, and breathing a little bit about it. Because what happens also when we get so caught up in this physical stuff, we lose perspective. Okay. The part of being an neshama is to remember, it's not all me making this happen. And we need to let go of that too, because otherwise, we become real control freaks in our own stuff. But it's Hashem, you can take the world off your shoulders because really Hashem is running it. But if we don't and again, being in the present and doing it, we don't get that. And we just think, if I don't make dinner in time, if I don't do this, and I don't get the shopping, stop.
Right. It's hard though. It's hard. And I think that's one of the things that's so important is to know that you're not in this alone, right? I remember in the beginning when you started the class for the Path of the Just, Mesilat Yesharim, I committed from day one. I committed to show up as if it was a class I was, paying millions of dollars for. Like, I am showing up because this is my guide. This is the thing that's going to get me to the next level. And the book is all about raising your level of consciousness. So it was like a no-brainer. People are paying so much money to raise their level of consciousness with, coaching and with programs and with things. And this was something that I committed to from day one. And that class is absolutely phenomenal. If anyone wants to join the class, get in touch with me. You can send me an email, advice@connectedforreal.com, or even write to Rhonda, and we'll get you on that, onto that. It is so powerful to have a community, a guide, something to follow, a system, a process. And it's why I base all of my things that I use for coaching on these frameworks, because it works so well.
That's, I have to validate that even a step further. It's like, these are things that were really deep wisdom, okay, that came from Kedusha, from a very holy place. The Ramchal who wrote this, had Ruach HaKodesh, okay? So the question is like, where do we want to get our self-help kind of guidance? From some really bright psychiatrists, or, from this wellspring of Torah? And by the way, one of the biggest complaints of the Ramchal was, and just so we understand too, because he said, the reason why he even wrote Mesilat Yesharim, he said, we have a big problem. He said, what is it? People aren't studying these subject matters. We're not teaching people how to become more spiritually developed. And he understood that. And he was a brilliant person. By the way, he also, it's very important to say too, he was like, a Renaissance man. He studied all types. He was in university, etc. He was a Kabbalist. He was even like a Shakespeare. He wrote beautiful books and stuff like that. But he understood. He said, look, these really bright people, they're not studying it, and he explained to studying, people are doing religion like from the neck up, without their heart. And then you have people doing it like with the whole heart. They're like going off the deep end. And it's sort of really scary, or they're chas v'shalom, people try to avoid their spirituality. And like I said too, they're going onto these, other spiritual paths because it looks confusing and stuff like that. And he was somewhere and said, look, there is a path of the just, right? There is a path that we can do to really grow ourselves. Okay. It's not an easy one. There's a lot of work involved. It's slow. And, but yet this is really, I would say, again, I always feel like, and I'm very careful too. We always have to go in a place where we know that it's Kedusha and Torah, and we have a good teacher, right? That, it's Torah. This is, and not chas v'shalom, because sometimes some of the other stuff, I have to tell you, it looks great, and the mindfulness and all this, and you start picking up different pieces of it. But we need to go to our neshama, we're a piece of Hashem, and to really also make sure that I think the self-help things that we do also have that same source, is from that good makor. So that's also one reason why I would recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, going back to the, the fact that you're not alone, I am doing this. I'm a coach for women in business or successful careers, and I want to focus on the marriage and on making sure everything is working, because I see so much that when a person is trying to do it alone, they're carrying a lot. And when they have a reminder, a person to follow that says, "Hey, chill out, pause, take a deep breath, bring God into it,"
Right.
things start to flow, things start to unravel. It
Mhm.
doesn't feel as heavy. And I feel really blessed to be able to do what I do, because I see it in action. I see it in action. It's really fun.
Amazing. It's amazing, right? I think that intuitively, instinctively, amazes me, Bat-Chen, that you have been able to get that.
Thank
I am, this doesn't come instinctively. I'm learning it from the Ramchal and Rabbi Schwartz, and like I said, it's a lot of self work, but I definitely see the results, and I see how it's completely like it's life altering. It really, really is. And I'd say even more than I say, especially if you're a woman in business and your family and stuff like that, you need this, okay? Because otherwise, really, you're not gonna get a heart attack. I don't know what, it
you.
is
No,
too
it's
much.
impossible.
There's too much going on. No, that's a lot. You
Yeah,
need to find,
the illusion gets heavy when you
yeah,
hold it. Yeah.
Nahan, it does, and it really does. And so,
Right.
okay, so people doing something, we're Wonder Woman, and we're like, we always talk about like, so, well, we'd be able to do 10 things at once and stuff like that. So yeah, I was like, wow, I know how to do 10. We multitask. By the way, one of the things that we learn also in the thing that multitasking is really bad because, it's not helping you to multitask and do 20 things at once. Really? You should be pausing and focusing and be present in the one. And it's almost opposite because we feel like we have so much we have to do in our lives, we develop, I would say habits that are actually the opposite of what we need.
Right.
It's counterintuitive, but it's really important too to do these other ones.
That's amazing. Amazing. We're coming to the end of our amazing time together, and I am grateful that I still get to hang out with you, on a regular basis, weekly on the class, and also, I have you as a friend. But for the listeners, this is mind-blowing. This is the first time that they're thinking about time in this way. It's not scarce, it's not limited. Suddenly time is a different thing that they've never experienced like this before. So what would you want to add before we end?
I really just think it's so simple. Just the simple exercise is what we said too, is just stop. Just even take 1 minute and just don't even think about anything. Nothing. Try to even think about nothing for a minute. By the way, it's very interesting that actually in the old schools of the prophets, and if you know some Kabbalah, one of the things they used to do to connect actually and get what we call Ruach HaKodesh prophecy was to focus on nothing. Can you imagine? Just nothing to clear the mind. Because when we clear all of this, like, it's like, this full plate of this wreckage of all things that tomorrow in a minute, and we clear it. As you said too, Hashem's in this pause. This is a place where we can expand and we can grow ourselves in such a huge way. So just give yourself even that 1 minute a day just to create the place where you can start to grow. That's what I said. And by the way, Rabbi Schwartz says that's where it all starts, is clearing out, even just making time in your life, even that 1 minute of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said that was so powerful. You said this is where it starts. And the truth is that we think, I want everything, I need to fix everything. Everything's too overwhelming. Everything's going, fires everywhere. I don't know where to focus first. And the answer is don't focus on anything. Just pause for 1 minute, and then somehow everything will start to figure itself out. Things start to fall into place when you pause.
Yep, it really does. And I used to say I was fire chief. I was putting out fires all the time. That's what I did. That's what my job was, really to put out fires, And and so really, I would say that advice is just so important. So we're thinking like, and it just, what it is, this self manifestation. The more you do it, the more you feel you have to do it. And it's really, like I said, counter, but take that pause. Hashem's in the pause. Hit the pause.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebbetzin.
You're welcome. You're welcome. If anybody wants to follow up with Rhonda or come to the classes, please be in touch. We will help you and set you up.
I'd love to have you. The class is free because I feel like it's the equivalent. I feel the more people can get in touch, it's whatever. It shouldn't. It was funny that you said, because now you said to yourself that even if you're not paying for it, you're going to come every week. It's funny because sometimes we feel like it only has value if we pay for it. Sometimes we feel like it only has value maybe these, modern day self-help, and so it's something that's right in our hands. We don't have the value for, but I really say, it's free because I want everyone to be able to get it. Anyone who can, who wants, it's there.
Yeah. It's so powerful. By the way, anybody who works with me gets access to it automatically because I feel like it's such an integral part of the work that I do, is being able to have access to that path of raising your level of consciousness. It just goes hand in hand with all the work that we do. So
right. So you started it now. You have it in that.
Right. I have it. Yeah, I have it in the vault with all the classes. So I think it's important to go to the class, and I go to the class and I take notes and I do it. And I see that my clients end up learning the skills to be able to make it practical and bring it down to the level of life, how to manage time, how to deal with things. It's really, really powerful. So thank you very much for coming and for the classes that you give and for everything. And thank you to the listeners for being here. Make sure you come back next week for another episode about time and marriage.